people that definitely did not master Chapter 8. Excuse me, and I have a feeling it's because they did not do their practice in a timely manner. Because if you wait to practice until after you try the mastery, you maybe like learn some things wrong or never practice them to get them into your memory. So tonight we're going to do Chapter 9 closure and today in class. So you might go home with no homework. You can do whatever you need to do, Simon. Your homework from last week is written on the chalkboard right here. Please turn that in, 911 through 923. Yeah, we covered the whole chapter in just that week. Well, that week and yesterday, which I just probably won't ever collect yesterday's homework. As we go through the closure, some problems are going to be tough because we skipped those sections, and that's fine. We'll do those together. Okay, so I want you guys to work on this for like 15 or 20 minutes on your own. We're going to start at 155, and some of these should be real fast. Like 155 and 156 are probably going to be faster problems. But then 157, we didn't do a lot with the Pythagorean theorem. I taught it to you guys really quickly. So if you remember it, you might be able to do this. If not, skip it, and we'll come back to it and do it together here in like 15 or 20 minutes. So you should have a book, but I will leave this up on 155 up here. Maybe I'll be real nice and I'll snapshot some of these to put them up onto the other screen too. Yeah. Yep, we're trying to. Even the problems that we maybe skipped the first time around. Or like the work that we skipped the first time around.
Mr. Hudson.
Yes.
Are the 8th grade books the books that are on our locker?
Yes, they're your books. Yes. Guys, it's killing me how many of you just don't care to bring your book. You just assume you'll just watch the screen the whole time. So there's 56 and 57, 56 and 57 up on the TV. So those are your first couple problems. You guys should totally be talking with each other, or at least verifying answers with each other. And so I would encourage you to work together.
You're asking us to talk?
Yes, I am not your normal teacher. I hope you know that by now. I'm not your average parent.
Is anything in this school normal up the street?
Oh, no.
Is anything in this school normal?
Now let's get one thing clear, Octavio. I did not steal. I did not steal anything.
You simply
I traded.
Oh,
Made
you
an even trade. 4 pens for 4 pens. It was a trade deal that the other person hadn't agreed to or knew about or was aware of.
Wait, does she know?
Yeah, she doesn't know. There was a whole thing yesterday.
Mr. Hudson, Mr.
Okay,
No, I traded. Borrow would say that I intend to get back. I do not intend to get back.
Someone here, the temple in the first Indian Jordan movie that he was traded.
You are correct, yeah.
He was, and yet they traded.
You gotta get those masses correct though, because if you trade wrong, that's why they call it Temple of Doom. Not like the Temple of Fun Times. I'm gonna set up what you need for 157, so that hopefully you're able to get through it on your own. But then if not, we'll go through it together.
Why can't we just do 9.2.7? It's all about bragging and
Because we don't have time. Like, not joking, we have a lot of content to get to.
Should we still follow chapter 10?
I mean, yes, but what it comes down to is wherever we end, I just tell Mr. Paul, this is where we ended. So again, for my choir people that weren't here yesterday, you this year are taking the 7th grade test because we crammed all this content together. Next year, you'll take the high school math 1 test at the end of the year. You skipped the 8th grade test. Yeah. Now, if we can keep working and stay focused, I will happily put on some music.
Depends on music.
We will fix. Well, hopefully today my AO and extensions will be a bit more. So, like maybe at extensions we could chat. Like, we're getting on top of that situation. Hey, isn't that a first person curator of like an interview? So that's so weird. We're stuck in this cycle. Well, there you go again. I essentially So if we go to attack this Pythagorean theorem problem, what are our A's and B's here? Yeah, this is the closure.
Oh, I wrote this note.
No, your homework is finish this, which means if you finish this in class, you're done. What are our A's and B's in the Pythagorean? They're the what of the triangle? It's weird. The legs, right? It's awkward, but we say that triangles have legs. They're going to walk away.
Them legs are really nice.
How do we know that those are the legs versus the hypotenuse? What are we looking for in this triangle that indicates what is what? Quinn?
It's the line, it's the diagonal line.
What do you mean? Why is that diagonal versus the other ones could be diagonal? Because they could.
There's a right angle between.
Ah, the right angle.
Yes, I did it.
What does hypotenuse actually mean again? Let's say you're on a game show for $1 million. What does hypotenuse translate as, or why does it use hypo?
Because it's under pressure.
It's under the right angle. Okay, so we would say 7 squared plus x squared equals 15 squared. What's 15 squared? 225. That one's kind of fun. I don't know why, but in my head I like it. 7 squared? X squared we can't really do anything with right now. But what do we do to get the x squared working towards figuring out x? Mallory?
So what I did was I subtracted 225, I subtracted 49.
What'd you get?
146.
So then what are we going to try to do to get rid of the square root, the square?
176.
176? Well, we do subtract. Be careful. So we subtract 49 on both sides.
Yeah. So now you just want to take 176 and divide it.
Ah, guys, make sure that you can talk about this. We are square rooting. Is 176 a perfect square? So, now, hold up, because we didn't really talk about this in the lesson. Radical form is literally presenting your answer as x is radical 176. Done. Because it's gross. Decimal form will then have to be rounded, but we would say x is 13.27. What is it? 27? 13.27. I knew 13 because 13 times 13 is 169. So I know this is just over that. 13.27. Or just leave it in radical form. But that's when the question asks give the answer in radical form and as a decimal. This is radical form. You do not have to do the simplified radical form like we talked about yesterday where you have a number, radical, another number. You don't have to do that if you're just leaving it in radical form. Now it says leave it in simplified radical form. That's different. We want to try to simplify it and pull out whatever we can. Any other ones that you're coming up against that look real tough?
No, not really.
Remember our rules with 158? We add if they are multiplying, and we subtract if they are dividing. D is probably the hardest one up here, and a lot of us missed problems like this on chapter 8. So please anticipate there will be problems like this on this chapter. D, we combine the numbers with each other, and then we do the variable work. So how are 3 and 4 going to combine? Ooh, no. Multiplication, right? All of this is multiplying. So it becomes 12x to the... Now, give me your attention, please. This is an extension that I might do on this test that we didn't do on last test because I didn't make you convert like this. Some mathematicians will tell you this is not the right way to write this. It's correct, but it's not the right way because they don't like negative exponents, which we really don't. They're not very nice to think about. So instead, they would have you write this as 12 what? Over or divided by x to the third. So that is the technical correct answer there. They're both right, but we don't like negative exponents. We don't really like negative anything. Negative attitudes, negative bank accounts.
What about negative interest?
What about
There is no negative interest.
what about
It's
negative
like that doesn't,
potato?
there's either interest or not interest.
How
So,
about
Is
negative
that
debt?
negative to anything?
I mean, sure, yeah, I'll take that. But
Sure.
Oh my god, it actually goes negative doll, negative potato, negative.
all right, anything else look real tough that you want my help with, or you just want more time?
Time.
Visualize a
I
line.
need more spices. Give me that time.
Savannah, what are you looking at?
9-162
C, part 3.
Yeah.
So, this can only be done after this. So, I'm going to need a minute if I'm going to help you with this. Okay, so you guys keep working. I'm going to start doing my work for 162 to help guide you through how to do that, because Savannah asked that great question. It's all positive, all positive. So I say this with all the love in the world, but those of you that can't sit and do work without making noises, you should address that. Because trust me, once you get to 8th grade, and quite frankly, I already have very little patience for the fact that you as an almost teenager or teenager still cannot sit and, talking is different, but if you can't sit and work without making animal noises, you should address that. using a weird scale, just I'm trying to fill my space. Not really weird, but 3 versus a third. So this is obviously not really me doing this for you, because you're still going to want to make a graph and do this on your own. But if we draw a scatter plot of the information in 162, we're going to get something similar to this. Now, I put this red circle around this blue point. Why? Anyone know?
Because
Brendan?
Two
Yeah.
of them are.
Yeah, thank you, Braden. Sorry, occasionally my brain slips up and calls you the wrong B name. But yes, Braden is absolutely correct. 2 points in the same spot. Now, technically, you would just put another dot, but I wanted to talk about that, so that's why I made it 2 different colors. Don't use open circles unless you're using that for everything. This will confuse people, especially on a test, if you are graphing using 2 different symbols. So a line of best fit is really just grab a ruler and play with it until you think it's right. So, you know, this is like your ruler sitting on top of here, and you're trying to line things up and go through the most amount of points as possible. But for us to be able to determine an equation that matches it, we're going to need it to hit the y-axis. So, 2 different ways that we do this. And you do more of this in 8th grade, and that's why this is a good problem for us to go over. 2 different ways to do this is match with the points the best way possible, which is technically what you're trying to do. But if you want to make your equation easy, plant it somewhere nice. Like I could use a y-intercept of 6, and then play with your line of best fit to see if you can still make it hit. You want it to go through as many points as possible, and trying to have an equal number above and below. So see how these are really close, one's above, one's below. This is pretty good. Now, I know my y-intercept, but I don't know my slope yet. We know that the standard form, or standard graphing form, for a straight line is y equals mx plus b, and we haven't dealt with non-straight lines. That'll be Math 1, Math 2. What is our y-intercept? Where does that go in our equation? Is it the y, x, m, or b? B, right? Because y and x don't get filled in. They stay y and x. So my equation here, I made it 6. Yours might be slightly different. This is my line of best fit. And then for my slope, how do I determine slope? Which you do want to be comfortable with this as we head towards the mastery. How do I talk about slope, George?
You rise over
Rise over run. Find 2 points that work nice. Well, my line looks like it goes pretty much straight through this point, which I know what that is, and pretty much straight through this point, which I know what that is. Let's compare those. Well, 1 and 3. Okay, well, that's a rise of, or sorry, that 2 goes here. Guys, notice I made my scales really weird. My scale here is a third. My scale here is 3. I was just trying to take up my whole screen. If you make your scale 1 to 1, your line will look a lot more steep. But then this vertical change, I can look at my table to figure that out. I'm going from 1025 to 18. Well, okay, that's 775. If I compare those through division, which is what we set up, rise over run, I just got to cut this in half. 3.5 plus another 3.87, something like that, maybe. I think it's somewhere around there without actually doing the math. I think got to be less than 4. We know that. Questions on how we determine our slope, or y-intercept, or the equation, or the scatter plot, like anything. Why did I use number of books for x? Can anyone talk to the independent versus dependent and use those vocab words? Anyone not Quinn? I feel like he could teach the class.
Maybe.
In this situation, Quinn, what could you say depends on what?
I would say that the total cost depends on the number of books.
Our total cost depends on the number of books, which is why we set it up with cost being y, books being x. Books is independent. I click how many books I want. That's an independent choice. The price depends on number of books. Now, if I could independently choose my price, that would be sweet.
Yeah.
Now, I can, kind of, but that constricts my books.
Yeah.
Any other problems that we think we'd like to go over? Oh, that's the last one of the review section. So I think we have a pretty good shot of getting this done. We got about 10 minutes left, guys. There's 161.
I had a draft. I had a mixed draft of this one.
How many? So when I compare these two situations, really, guys, if I want to do some over-teaching, what we're talking about here is called functions, like the mathematical stuff we're talking about. I have two functions here to compare. I have Clay's cookies relative to how many hours, and I have Lacey's cookies relative to how many hours. This is what we call function notation. So instead of saying y equals, we just notate what it is we're talking about, because I don't want to say y equals twice. Now, Clay already has some cookies made. 3 dozen, let's just work in dozens. So he's got 3 made already. What would I add with that? 3 plus 2, 2h in this situation. So x, if I was using x here, or since I'm using h over there, we can say h. And then does Lacey have any right now? No, but how many can she make?
4.
4 every hour. So what we're looking at is when will they be equal? So guys, we could graph these or set them equal. Right? They're asking when will they have equal amounts of cookies. This is amounts of cookies. So I just set them equal, and I go to do the algebra. What should I do on both sides first? I have 3, 2h, and 4h. Someone not coin. Connor? Do I have like terms that should be grouped up together? George?
Well, you use 2 times h first, but you already did that. So, would you just do 2h minus 2h to get...
Yeah, it might make more sense if I write it without the dot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These variable terms should go together.
So, you should, yeah.
So we got to subtract 2h.
Yeah, I was about to say you could write it like that, so it's easier for the process.
3 equals 2h. In this situation, what does this result actually mean? After 1.5 hours.
Oh.
Lucy will have the same amount of cookies as Lacey, or the same amount of cookies as Clay. Huh. We have Lacey cookies and Clay cookies. I think I would probably eat a Lacey cookie. A Clay cookie sounds a little
It's
special.
not, I don't think that's actual brand.
Maybe
Right,
you can make claymations out of them.
I'll put in a shameless plug while I have you guys here.
What's a shame?
A shameless plug is like, I'm putting in a plug for something and I don't have any shame about it. Like, so, whereas like some people could advertise something and be like, oh, I kind of feel bad that I'm doing this instead of the, I don't know. It's just a phrase. It's a term of speech. My 8th graders, and I also want you guys to continue thinking about what class are you going to elect to go into next year. You have the opportunity to go into Math 1 because you took this course this year. But I want you still like being honest with yourself and analyzing how much do you have going on next year. Where are you going to put your efforts? Math 1 is taking a bigger bite, right, metaphorically speaking, than Math 8. So you're able to drop back to Math 8, review things, get things really solid. So my kids that are 2 years accelerated in math, like, love math. They get excited about math. And they also like to laugh about math. So there's this book called What If that I wanted to share with you because I thought some of you might like this and it could be a summer read. So the book, they took the cover off, or maybe it doesn't have a cover. The book, like, tagline, serious scientific answers to absurd hypothetical questions. So they went through and flagged ones that I should read. They're like, oh my gosh, you got to look at this. So this is a true math, like you could solve this with math. From what height would you need to drop a steak for it to be cooked when it hits the ground? Because the amount of energy needed. Or, what would happen if you made a periodic table out of cube-shaped bricks, where each brick was made of the corresponding element? So, like, the atomic mass, think about it, those bricks would be extremely heavy compared to, or, so this book is called What If, by the way. So you guys don't know what a mole is yet? Maybe you might have heard about it somewhere.
I know what two moles are. Like the mole on your face.
What would happen if you were to gather a mole of moles in one place? So a mole is a unit of measure. Or last one, if every person on Earth aimed a laser pointer at the moon at the same time, could we make it change colors? So, like, then they go through the math behind it. So it says, like, so not if we use regular laser pointers. And it literally, like, goes through all the math. And then they're like, what if we tried more power? So, like, and they process through the math. Like, this is great. The Department of Defense has developed megawatt lasers designed for destroying incoming missiles in mid-flight. So let's talk about megawatt lasers. Like, it's a funny book. I think I'm gonna buy a copy of it for us to have at Phoenix.
Wait,
So,
what does it cost?
and then if you're curious, I've talked about credit card interest a lot. And when we talk about interest, it sometimes doesn't necessarily hit home. This is my bill from REI. I've blacked out all my account information. But I just wanted to show you guys because I had it here at school. When we talk about interest rates, when we talk about like 4%, 5%, and like then we start to get some bigger numbers and maybe even we dabble up into 10%. Guys, when you look at, and in a few years you'll be there before you realize it, for balance transfers or for purchases, these two matching interest rates are my regular interest rate, and that's because I have good credit. I have worked hard to have good credit. I have a good credit score. But even with that good credit score, if I use my credit card to borrow money, like cash, physical paper money, my interest rate is 26%.
Holy crap.
That's insane. So I just wanted to show you guys this as one of those references of percents in the real world. They essentially double my percent, whether I'm swiping the card to make a purchase or would like to borrow physical cash money. You know, like make it rain or something.
Wait, when we're done, should we just turn it in?
I mean, sure. I don't know if I'll really collect Monday, Tuesday homework. We're just doing the closure to review for the test.
Oh, okay.
You should anticipate test questions matching the closure questions.
Okay, I'm just gonna.
Yeah. You should anticipate test questions matching closure questions.
I don't think we have.
We got about 3 minutes left. Anything else we want to talk about?
Does it have to be closer?
Yeah, we can meet during AO if you want. AO extensions. I should have more time today.
It would be extensions, but they don't have AM.
Okay. Remember, these angles are congruent versus these being supplementary, which means these would also be supplementary.
Wait, were we supposed to start with this?
So your turn, you flipped your X and your Y. You guys think about it. The money we're gonna owe will be dependent on the amount of books we buy. So when I graph this, I put money owed as my y-axis because y depends on x. So the money we owe them depends on the number of books. So Connor, if you want to be able to get an equation here, you got to flip your x and your y.
So I had to restart it, and I was like,